There is a holiday this week, and we do not have class Thursday. Campus is also closed on Friday, and I'm not going to have office hour either. Okay, and mostly because I need to finish grading exam 2, but also due to the holiday. We will not have a quiz this week, but we are going to need to take a quiz next week. Okay, homework number 10 is due tonight. We're doing homework number 11 notes today. We're doing 12 homeworks total. Homework 11 is due next week on Tuesday, which is the 30th. All right. Today we need to go over the square root property, completing the square, and functions. So very focused notes. But if you have questions when we come back next week about homework 11, I can do more examples that Tuesday. Okay, so I want to talk about 2 different ideas. There's one that we've already seen, where you take the square root of a number. This is square root of a number. You simplify that to a positive, and in this case, positive 3. And then same thing with like root of 25 would be positive 5. Thanks. One more. Let's do the root of 4. It would be positive 2. Okay, then there's this different idea where you have a variable as part of an equation, and you can get 2 solutions in that case. Okay, let's like something similar. Look at something similar to this. Instead, we're going to have x squared equal to 9. And you want to solve for x. Okay, possible values of x, you could use 3. 3 squared is 9. Another solution for x would be negative 3. Negative 3 squared is also equal to 9. Okay, so when there's a variable as part of an equation and you use the square root property, you get two solutions. Where on Google it was called the square root method. You're solving something that looks like x squared equal to a number. So x is your variable and b is some number. You can square root each side and then you'll have two solutions in the end. Okay, so let's do something like x squared equal to 25. Okay, so just to start, I would copy this part down. Okay, square root both sides. Where, let's say you had a power 3, then I would cube root both sides. You want to take care of this exponent. So if I have a power 2, I would use a root 2. Same thing to this side. It'll put a plus or minus in front of the square root of a number. Okay, so the root of x squared is x. And it's equal to positive or negative root of 25, which is 5. So there's two solutions. There's a positive 5 and a negative 5. Okay. We'll have, let's do a squared minus 2 equal to 2. Solving for a, and we're going to get two solutions. Okay, so just copy down the problem. A squared minus 2 equal to 2. Okay, when I get this value that's squared isolated, add this 2 to both sides. Then after, I can take care of the exponent with a root, with the square root method. Okay, so this is where we square root both sides. I'll put a plus or minus before the root of 4. This side is a, and it's equal to positive or negative 2. So a is equal to 2 or negative 2. This time we solve for t. And the equation is 7t minus 3 squared equal to 36. Okay, so I want to take care of that exponent of 2 with the square root. Okay, I'm going to square root this number. We're going to put a plus or minus in front of that root. Okay, so from here over to there, the power of 2 and the root 2 are going to undo each other and leave 7t minus 3. Over here we have the plus or minus of 6. Or a positive or negative 6. What we can do next is either write two equations, 7t minus 3 equals 6, or 7t minus 3 equal to negative 6, and solve each one separately. But another way to think about this is to add 3 to each. No, it's going to get messy. We're going to create two equations, like I said. The first one is where this 7t minus 3 is equal to positive 6. Start the other one. 7t subtract 3 and is equal to negative 6. Okay, let's get the first value of t. Add 3 to both sides. And divide both sides by 7. T equal to positive 9/7 is one solution. Then we'll get the other one, and we add 3 to each side. Then divide both sides by 7. So the other solution is negative 3/7. So one more using the square root method. We're going to just solve for x. And this time, it's 3x plus 1 squared equal to 9. Okay, so we'll copy this problem down and take care of that power first. So trying to get x isolated and get everything else on the other side of the equation using all of the rules that we've been learning. Okay, so to take care of this power 2, we'll use a root 2 on both sides. And on this side, we have a plus or minus before the root of 9. Okay, next step. That square root and power 2 are going to leave 3x plus 1. The other side is plus or minus. Okay, I would like to just separate this into 2 equations and then get 2 solutions. The first one being 3x plus 1 equal to, let's go with a positive 3. And then we'll copy down the other one, come back and solve it later. So that would be 3x plus 1 equal to negative 3. Okay, from here, we subtract 1 from each side. And divide both sides by 3. Okay, that's one solution. There's another solution. Subtract 1. We have 3x equal to negative 4. Divide both sides by 3. Okay, x would be equal to negative 4. Okay, so we've gone over how to solve the first 5 or 6 problems of your homework. The next part is how to complete the square. Okay, so this is kind of a bigger picture where you have an equation and you solve the equation by completing the square. And as part of one of these steps, we'll practice, and that's just completing the square. So in this case, you have an equation, and it's a quadratic equation. And you just need two parts of that equation to complete the square. The part where your variable is squared, let's say it's x, and the other term where there's just an x value, x squared plus some number times x. The terms that look like this together. And I suggest that you take the number, whatever number it is, and get it on the other side of the equation. So that number c is on this side. You have your x squared plus bx on the other side. Okay, then you have to add a special value. You take whatever number is with x, divide it by 2, and then square that. In the past, I would usually suggest to students to try to memorize this part. Then, with that value added to, so the question is, where does, I guess maybe b divided by 2 squared come from? I will go down this side and try to explain it. I might explain it quickly because it's a bit, let's give it a try. I can't do much extra notes. Well, maybe I can. We can meet on Tuesday and do the rest of the notes that day. Okay. So the idea for completing the square is you have some value and it's squared. Let's go with x plus b squared. I think this should lead us to the right. Okay, FOIL. X squared plus 2bx plus b squared. Okay. So the number I need right here is b squared. And let's call this number, let's call this something that's not necessarily, let's call it b star. No, how do we? I don't want to overthink it, but let's just call this w. Okay, so you have this value w right here, like x squared plus x plus something. Okay, w is 2b. Or how do I want to do this? Okay, yeah. Take w, take both sides and divide by 2. And that leaves b on this side. And 2 on this side. And then this number that we're looking for at the end is squared. So it's this squared number, and b is inside. B turns out to be w divided by 2. And w is whatever number is in front of x. So, oops, let's go. Okay, so I got my variables kind of switched around, but you take whatever number is in front of the x value, divide it by 2, and then square the whole thing. And then we'll be able to get this factored form, which is called completing the square. Okay, so this is all just on the side. We need to go back to the steps of how to use completing the square to get your 2 solutions. Yeah, there should be 2 solutions. You add that number, and by adding that number, you can complete the square, which is step 3. And we'll practice that a few times before we go through all of these steps. Okay, so you're doing this for this side where we had the x squared plus bx, and then we add the special number. It's this number before x divided by 2 and squared. And the last step is to use the square root property. So square root both sides and solve for x. Okay, so what I just went over is sort of a bigger idea where you have an equation and you solve the equation, and we're going to get 2 solutions. You're going to get as many solutions as the highest power of. So the highest power is 2. 2 solutions at most. And there's another version, another part where you just look at part 3, and it's just an expression, and you take that expression and factor it, and you factor it by completing the square. So we're going to start just practicing number 3. You just simplify, but mostly factor a quadratic expression. Then, after we understand how to complete the square, we'll use that method to solve an equation and get 2 solutions. Okay, so we're going to use examples like the homework, where we fill in the blank. fill in the blanks. Okay, x squared, add 18x. Add some number. And by adding that number, we can complete the square and have some value squared. So this is the other blank. Okay, the number that you need to add to complete the square is b divided by 2 squared, and b is this number 18. Simplify this, it's 9 squared. So I want to add 81. Okay. And by adding 81, I can write this as some number multiplied with its, or some value multiplied with itself. So when I was first taught how to complete the square, it was kind of by memorizing different forms of this expression. But instead, after a lot of practice, I've found that I really like to just draw a square and fill it in. So we'll practice that way. So it's a multiplication table, but it helps me kind of think about completing the square where I want this term on this side to match, or I mean this factor on this side to match the one that's on the top. And then the values here are inside the box. So I'm going to put x squared in the top. And 81 over here. And then I start to find the sides. So x times x is x squared. And 9 times 9 is 81. This would give me 9x. Another 9x. Then we add these terms. This would be a positive 18x. I do have a positive 18x. So I want this positive 9. This to be positive 9. So x plus 9 times x plus 9 is x squared plus 18x plus 81. We make it x plus 9 squared. We're going to do one more fill in the blanks, but then we're going to get more practice how to do this by actually solving some equations. let's see, x squared minus 6x plus some number can be written as something squared. Let's find that number that you need to add. It's b divided by 2 squared. So go to x. The number in front is negative 6. Negative 6 divided by 2 squared. We've got negative 3 squared. Oops. Okay, so if I add 9 to terms that look like this, we can write this as a number or a value multiplied with itself. Maybe you do have this memorized, or you have another way to think through this step. But I like to draw the multiplication table. I'm trying to get all of these terms in the table. Start with x squared here and 9 over there. Then I get the sides, or start to get the sides. X times x is x squared. I want both sides to match, so I'm going to use 3 times 3 to get 9, instead of like 1 times 9. I want the same number here as over here. And then multiply to 9. This multiplies to 3x. Here. And we would add these terms together, which would be 6x. But I'm trying to find a negative 6x. So if this is negative 3 and this is negative 3, it gives me negative 6. Or x squared minus 6x plus 9 equals x minus 3 times x minus 3. X minus 3 squared. Okay, cool. We've got enough time. We're going to start solving equations by completing the square. So we solve for x when x squared plus 4x is equal to 5. first, before we find that number to add, I just want to point out that we use this piece, or these terms, and this special value. On those three terms, we complete the square. On everything else, it's just kind of sitting there. So I suggest that you use the right operations to have all those other values on the other side of your equation, but you don't have to. Anyway, we've got this x squared plus 4x kind of together. And we already have that number over on the other side. And to these two terms, we add b divided by 2 squared. So it's the number that's with x. Take 4 divided by 2 and square. So on this side, we need to add 4, and we'll complete the square. On this side, we'll add 4 to keep both values equal to each other. Okay, over here, we'll do scratch work to complete the square. On this side, 5 plus 4 is 9. Okay, so it's just, I guess, less stressful for me to draw a multiplication table and fill it in. It may take some time, but I always didn't like, I've never really liked memorizing completing the square. So I want to find that side and have x squared in one corner, 4 in the other. Get these values, which should both match. X squared is x times x. 2 times 2 would be 4. You'd have 2x. 2x. This would add to positive 4x, and we do have a positive 4x if these are both positive too. Okay, so x plus 2 times x plus 2 is x squared plus 4x plus 4. X plus 2. Okay, so it was from here to here, complete the square. This side, just add. Then you can square root both sides. On this number, we'll have a plus or minus root of 9. So square root and power 2, which leaves the x plus 2. And plus or minus 3. But you don't really need these parentheses. Okay, I could subtract 2 from both sides. And x is negative 2 plus or minus. from here, the first x value is -2 plus 3. Or you have x equal to -2 minus 3. Another problem, we solve for x. By the way, there's also the quadratic formula, which a lot of us maybe memorized. That's another way to get your two solutions of x. So this is just one method of solving for x, and it's by completing the square. But unless like otherwise told, you could get your solutions like again with the quadratic formula or something like that. Okay, we have x squared minus 2x minus 2 equal to 0. Okay, first I'm just going to copy this down. And I want to point out that these are the parts of this, or on these two terms, we add that special number and complete the square. So this part, we can cut this. This number, you could leave it there. I was kind of taught to just have it on this side by like adding 2 to both sides. Then we take these parts and add that number, which is b divided by 2 squared. So maybe on another part of your paper or separately, like on separate scratch paper, you find that value. And it's right here, -2. So divide by 2. It's a lot of 2's. But we've got -1 in the parentheses, and then that squared is +1. adding 1 on this side, I can complete the square. But to keep this side equal to that one, I need to add 1 over here as well. Okay, from here, we're going to go to here and have something squared, and it's equal to 3. And I'm just going to go through filling out that table for getting all the parts of this square shape. Nope. Okay, so I want x squared and then positive 1. And I would start finding the sides. X times x is x squared. 1 times 1 is 1. So this is x. Well, if this were a positive 1, we'd have x right here. Positive 1 times x is x. This would add to positive 2x. I'm trying to have a negative 2x. So to get these negative, I make this negative 1 and this negative 1. Okay, x minus 1 times x minus 1 is x squared minus 2x plus 1. So we can take all these terms and write them as x minus 1 squared. Okay, so from here over to here, we square root both sides. And over on that number, we'll have a plus or minus root 3. Okay, so I take the square root to match that power 2, and then get this x minus 1, which I don't need parentheses. And it's equal to plus or minus root 3. Okay, we can add 1 to each side. And get x equal to 1 plus or minus root 3. So there's 2 solutions, the 1 plus root 3 and a 1 minus root 3. We're going through one more example like this and then switch to another topic. x squared minus 14x plus 36 equal to 0. So it's the two terms that look like this, that variable squared and some number times the variable. We're going to use those parts to complete the square. This value you could leave here if you are comfortable with that. I usually have it on this side by subtracting 36 to both sides of the equation. Okay. We're going to continue. To have x squared minus 14x and is equal to negative 36. Okay. Here to here, we add that special number. So I would do scratch work even more on the side where you find that number. So x squared minus 14x plus something. Okay, and that thing is b divided by 2 squared. All right, we're here with negative 14 for b. It's negative 7 squared. All right, we're gonna just have this part and add 49 to both sides. Okay. Adding this number on this side, we will be able to complete the square. And keep this side equal to that one. We have to add the number on both sides. Okay. So again, this side we can now factor into some number multiplied with itself. It's more like some value multiplied with itself. So term x squared goes to the top. It's 49 value down here. Start to get the sides. They should both match. X times x is x squared. And 7 times 7 would be 49. And if it's negative 7, negative 7x and negative 7x, which would add to negative 14x in the middle. So x squared minus 14x plus 49 is x minus 7 times x minus 7. X minus 7 squared. square root property and root this side. And this side is a plus or minus the root of 15. Okay. Keep on going to have x minus 7 equal to positive or negative root 13. And then we can add 7 to both sides. Okay, and we've got 2 solutions. So it's either 7 plus root 13. Or there's a 7 minus root 13. Okay, and then for the rest of class, we're going to talk about functions. But again, if there's anything you want to go over more on Tuesday next week, we can start with those kinds of questions. So the way that I've got it memorized, and there's a lot of ways to describe a function, but I like to think that a function is a relation or relationship in which every input goes to one output. Okay, it's called. It's usually an x value used as your input. And that input goes to only one output, or exactly one output. Let's say has. Usually outputs are called y. Sometimes they're called f of x. And there's only one of them, so it's y or f of x. They mean the same thing. So I like to draw a picture. Also, we're going to have a name for a function. The function's name is f. Okay, a function. This is by definition. Is a relation such that every input x has exactly one output f of x, which we also call y. Okay, we're not going to go too deep into functions, but for now, we're going to label this set of inputs. And it's usually called the domain. And then the function goes from there to a set of outputs, which we call the codomain. But right now, just outputs. And this function is f. Okay, so you put in x, it goes through the function to one output, y. And sometimes we call y f of x, f evaluated at x. Okay. So in this example, we have one function, f. Function. F of x is x squared minus x plus 4. Okay, we're going to find f of 0. And part E, we'll get f of negative 1. And let's do part C for this one. We're going to put in, we're running out of time, but I think we could do f of 1/2, and that would be a better example. Okay, first part. So f of 1/2, you're putting in 1/2 for x. So I say everywhere there's an x value, put in parentheses, and then put the input inside of your parentheses. One half squared is 1 squared over 2 squared. We're subtracting 1/2 and add 4. So I've got 1/4 minus 1/2 plus 4, which I'm going to put over 1. Need a common denominator. The least common denominator, or least common divisor, the LCD, is 4. So you can multiply this by 2 over 2 and this by 4 over 4. So 1 minus 2 plus 16 16, 17, 18, and then subtract 1. 17 fourths. Let's see. 16, 17, oops. That's 17 minus 2. Okay, 15. Okay. Let's try the other problem. We're putting in -1. Okay, so again, I like to put parentheses in place of all the x's and then put a negative, or put your input inside. This input is -1. So f of -1 is -1 squared minus -1 plus 4. -1 squared is 1. Add 1. Add 4. So 2 plus 4, which is 6. And I think we're out of time. But this should be enough to help you through the homework. If you have homework questions, I will have office hour tomorrow, or we can talk about the problems on Tuesday. Okay, thank you, everyone.